The evening air carried a hint of rain as Lily wiped down tables at the Golden Spoon. This wasn't just any restaurant in the city. It was where the wealthy came to see and be seen. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, casting a warm glow over white tablecloths and polished silverware. Lily had been working here for almost 2 years now, and the novelty had long worn off. Tonight was Thursday, which meant the after-work crowd would be coming in soon. As she arranged fresh flowers at table 12, Lily glanced at the grand piano in the corner. It sat there most nights, mostly for show, occasionally played by hired musicians on weekends. Her fingers itched whenever she looked at it. Table 15 needs fresh bread, and 16 just got seated with 6 guests, called out Mia, the hostess, breaking Lily's momentary trance. On it, Lily replied, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear and straightening her black uniform. 2 years ago, Lily had been a promising student at the city's music school. Piano had been her life since she was 5 years old, when her grandmother had taught her on an old upright that was missing 3 keys. But dreams cost money, and when her scholarship was cut unexpectedly, reality had come crashing down. Now, instead of playing at concert halls, she carried trays of expensive food to people who barely looked at her face. As the evening rush began, Lily moved between tables with practiced efficiency. She knew exactly how to be present without being noticed, how to anticipate needs before they were voiced. It was a different kind of performance than the one she'd trained for, but she'd become good at it. Just past 8, the front doors swung open, and a group of men in expensive suits walked in. Lily recognized the type immediately. Investment bankers or real estate developers, celebrating some deal that probably made them more money than she'd see in a lifetime. "Lily, take the corner booth," her manager whispered urgently. "Mr. Reynolds and his group just came in." She nodded, knowing better than to show any reaction. Thomas Reynolds was well known in the city, a real estate mogul whose name appeared on buildings across the skyline. He was also notorious among the waitstaff for being demanding and leaving mediocre tips, despite ordering the most expensive items on the menu. "Good evening, gentlemen," Lily said with a practiced smile as she approached their table. "Welcome to the Golden Spoon. Can I start you with some drinks?" Reynolds barely glanced at her. "Bring us your best champagne. 2 bottles. A man beside him, younger with a sharp suit and sharper eyes, laughed. "Let's make it 3. We're celebrating tonight." "Very good," Lily said, making a note. "Would you like to hear about our specials?" "Just bring the champagne first," Reynolds said, turning back to his companions. As Lily walked away, she could hear their boisterous conversation, something about a development deal that had finally gone through after months of negotiations. The younger man seemed to be the center of attention, probably the dealmaker being celebrated. When she returned with the champagne, she caught the tail end of a conversation, and the look on that councilman's face when you presented those numbers, Alex. "Priceless," one of the men was saying. So the younger one was Alex. He smiled with perfect, white teeth as Lily carefully opened the first bottle, with a soft pop, and began pouring it. "Wasn't the numbers that convinced him," Alex said. "It was knowing when to speak and when to listen. People tell you everything you need to know if you just pay attention." As he said this, his eyes flicked up to Lily for just a moment. Unlike the others, his gaze lingered on her face, not through her or at her body. It was brief but noticeable, as if he was actually seeing the person serving him. Throughout their first course, Lily maintained professional distance, bringing out overpriced appetizers and keeping glasses filled. The group grew louder with each passing minute, their laughter increasingly drawing glances from other diners. On her 5th trip to their table, Lily noticed Alex watching the piano again. His attention had drifted there several times throughout the evening. The restaurant had gotten busy, and Mr. Chen, the owner, occasionally brought in live music on busy nights even if it wasn't scheduled. "Shame that's just sitting there," Alex commented as Lily refilled his water glass. It was the first direct comment any of them had made to her beyond ordering. "Yes," she replied automatically. "It's a beautiful instrument. You play?" he asked, catching her off guard. Before she could answer, Reynolds cut in. "Don't bother chatting up the help, Alex. We've got business to discuss." Lily felt her cheeks warm but kept her expression neutral. "Your main courses should be out shortly," she said, retreating from the table. In the kitchen, she took a deep breath. 8 more hours of her double shift to go. She could do this. She had to, Rent was due next week and her roommate was already struggling with her share. As the night progressed, Reynolds' group continued celebrating, ordering more bottles and getting increasingly loud. Lily maintained her professional demeanor, though it grew more difficult as their behavior became more obnoxious. During dessert service, she approached their table with coffee just as Reynolds was telling a story. And I said, "If you think that property is only worth $5 million, you're not just wrong, you're stupid." He laughed loudly, pounding the table for emphasis. As Lily set down the coffee service, Reynolds turned to her suddenly. "Hey, didn't Alex ask if you played earlier?" "The piano, right?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. "I used to." Alex seemed to study her more carefully now. "Used to? That sounds like there's a story there." Before she could respond, one of the other men snorted. "Every server in this city is a former something. Former actor, former musician, former whatever. I studied at the Westview Music Academy," Lily said quietly, surprising herself by sharing this information. Maybe it was the exhaustion of the double shift, or maybe it was the way Alex had actually looked at her like a person. Reynolds raised his eyebrows. "Westview? That's supposed to be a good school, isn't it?" "One of the best," Alex confirmed, still watching Lily with interest. "Well then," Reynolds said, a glint appearing in his eye that made Lily instantly regret saying anything. "Why don't you play something for us? Show us what our overpriced meals are helping to fund." The table erupted in laughter and Lily felt her stomach tighten. "I'm sorry, sir, but I'm working. And we don't usually allow—" "Oh, come on," Reynolds interrupted. "The place is half empty now anyway. What's the harm?" "I'm afraid I can't—" "Tell you what," Reynolds said, lowering his voice and leaning forward. "I'll make it interesting. I'll bet you can't actually play anything worth listening to." Alex frowned. "Tom, let it go. She's just trying to do her job." But Reynolds was on a roll now, enjoying having an audience. No, I'm serious. Let's make it a wager." He pulled out his wallet and set what looked like several $100 bills on the table. "This says you can't play something that would impress this room." Lily stared at the money, then at Reynolds' smug face. She thought about her overdue tuition payments, about the dreams she'd had to put on hold, about the daily humiliation of serving people who looked through her. "Mr. Reynolds," she began carefully, "I appreciate the offer, but afraid to take the bet?" Reynolds taunted. "I thought you said you studied at Westview." Alex shook his head. "Leave her alone, Tom, you've had too much to drink." But Reynolds waved him off. "I'll make it even more interesting." He added more money to the pile. $1,000 says you can't play well enough to impress anyone in this restaurant. But if by some miracle you can, the money's yours." The table had gone quiet now, all eyes on Lily. She felt a familiar fire kindle inside her, the same determination that had gotten her into Westview in the first place. Despite growing up in a household where music lessons weren't exactly a priority, Mr. Chen wouldn't allow it, she said, though the excuse sounded weak even to her ears. As if summoned by his name, the restaurant owner appeared nearby, having overheard the commotion. "Is there a problem here, gentlemen?" Mr. Chen asked, his tone pleasant but his eyes concerned as they darted to Lily. "Not at all," Reynolds said with exaggerated cheer. "We were just discussing the possibility of some entertainment. Your waitress here claims to be a pianist from Westview." Mr. Chen looked at Lily with surprise. In the 2 years she'd worked there, she'd never mentioned her background to him. "I didn't claim anything," Lily said quietly. "But yes, I studied there." Mr. Chen seemed to consider this, looking between Lily and the table of wealthy men who regularly brought in substantial business. "Perhaps a short piece wouldn't be inappropriate," he said finally, clearly trying to please his high-paying customers. "If Lily is willing, of course." All eyes turned to her. She could feel the weight of Reynolds' smirk, the curiosity in Alex's gaze, and the skepticism from the others at the table. 2 years of putting aside her passion, of pretending that serving others was enough, of telling herself that dreams were luxuries she couldn't afford. And now here was a chance, not just to play again, but to show these men who looked through her that she was more than just the help. The money would certainly help with rent, but it wasn't really about that. Lily took a deep breath, feeling her heart pound against her ribs. "1 piece," she said firmly, "and then I need to get back to work." Reynolds' smirk widened as he leaned back, clearly anticipating entertainment of a different sort than Lily intended to provide. "This should be good," he said to his companions, not bothering to lower his voice. As Lily walked toward the piano, she felt a curious mixture of terror and exhilaration. It had been months since she'd played, though she practiced finger exercises on her countertop every night, unwilling to let her technique completely deteriorate. The grand piano gleamed under the restaurant lights, waiting. The restaurant had grown quiet as Lily approached the grand piano. Conversations faded to whispers, and even the clink of silverware seemed to soften. She could feel eyes on her back, curious diners, her fellow staff members frozen in their tasks, and of course, Reynolds and his group watching with varying degrees of amusement and skepticism. Mr. Chen hovered nearby, clearly nervous about his decision to allow this break from routine. "Just one short piece," he reminded her in a hushed tone. Lily nodded, her throat too dry to speak. The gleaming black piano seemed both welcoming and intimidating as she carefully lifted the cover from the keys. Her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted the bench, sliding it to the perfect distance. From the corner booth came Reynolds' voice, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "Hope everyone enjoys the amateur hour." A few of his companions chuckled. Alex, however, remained silent, his expression unreadable as he watched Lily settle at the instrument. Taking a deep breath, Lily placed her hands on the keys but didn't press down. It had been so long since she'd touched a piano of this quality. Her apartment couldn't accommodate even an upright, and the electronic keyboard she practiced on when she could afford the electricity hardly compared to this masterpiece of craftsmanship. The moment stretched as she gathered her courage. A few awkward coughs came from the dining area. Someone whispered, "Is she actually going to play?" Reynolds' laugh cut through the silence. "I think she's frozen. Maybe we should have made the bet smaller." That was enough. Lily's hesitation vanished, replaced by a familiar determination. She straightened her back, positioned her hands, and began to play. The first notes filled the restaurant, soft, delicate, almost hesitant. She had chosen Debussy's Clair de Lune, a piece she had performed countless times, one that lived in her muscle memory despite the months away from a proper instrument. As her fingers found their confidence, the music grew, becoming more fluid and expressive. The gentle melody floated through the room like moonlight on water, exactly what Debussy had intended. With each measure, Lily felt herself returning to the person she had been before bills and survival had consumed her life. The restaurant had fallen completely silent now. Even the kitchen staff had paused to listen, peeking through the service doors. Mr. Chen stood transfixed, his earlier concern transforming into wonder as Lily's hands moved gracefully across the keys. At the corner table, Reynolds' smug smile had faded. He leaned forward, brow furrowed as if trying to reconcile the woman who had been serving their meals with the artist, now commanding the room's attention. Alex watched intently, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth, while the other businessmen exchanged surprised glances. As the piece reached its crescendo, Lily closed her eyes, letting the music flow through her. Each note was perfect, not just technically correct, but filled with emotion, with longing, with the bittersweet beauty that had drawn her to music in the first place. When the final notes faded, there was a moment of complete silence. Lily sat still, eyes still closed, hands hovering above the keys. For that brief time, she wasn't a waitress with overdue rent and fading dreams. She was who she was meant to be. The spell broke when someone at a nearby table began to applaud. Others joined in, and suddenly the entire restaurant was filled with enthusiastic clapping. Lily opened her eyes, momentarily disoriented by the response. Her cheeks flushed as she turned to face the room. An older woman at a table near the piano stood up, still applauding. "Magnificent, dear. Absolutely magnificent." Lily nodded in acknowledgement, too overwhelmed to speak. She rose from the bench, prepared to return to her duties, when a voice called out from across the room. "Another!" someone shouted. Others echoed the request. Mr. Chen, who had been stunned into silence, finally found his voice. "I think we've had enough. I'd like to hear another piece," Alex interrupted, standing up from Reynolds' table. His eyes met Lily's across the room. "If she's willing." Reynolds looked between them, his face flushed with what might have been embarrassment or annoyance. "Fine," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "One more, since everyone's so impressed with the basics." The dismissive comment stung, but Lily hardly cared. The opportunity to play again on this beautiful instrument was too precious to waste on pride. She looked to Mr. Chen, who hesitated before giving a reluctant nod. One more, he agreed. Then back to work. Returning to the bench, Lily considered what to play next. Something to show Reynolds that Debussy was far from the basics. Something that would require technique and emotion in equal measure. Her fingers found the keys again, and this time she launched into Chopin's Etude Op. 10, number 12, known as the Revolutionary Etude. Where Debussy had been moonlight and water, this was fire and storm. The piece demanded everything: speed, precision, passion, and power. It had been one of the most challenging works in her repertoire at school. As the dramatic opening chords filled the restaurant, a few gasps could be heard. This was no simple melody, but a technically demanding piece that professional pianists included in their concerts. Lily's fingers flew across the keys, the left hand's rolling bass line perfectly balanced with the right hand's passionate melody. The intense concentration on her face, the way her entire body seemed to lean into the music, told everyone watching that this was no parlor trick or casual hobby. This was the performance of someone who had dedicated thousands of hours to their craft. At Reynolds' table, the mood had shifted. The men had stopped drinking, their attention fully captured by the unexpected concert. Reynolds himself sat rigid, his earlier mockery forgotten as he watched Lily's hands move with impossible speed and precision. Alex hadn't returned to his seat, instead moving closer to the piano, watching with undisguised admiration. Other diners, too, had shifted in their chairs to get a better view, some even standing. In the kitchen doorway, Lily's fellow servers watched with open mouths. They had worked alongside her for months, complaining about difficult customers and comparing tips, never knowing she possessed this extraordinary talent. As the piece reached its thunderous conclusion, Lily poured everything into the final passages, all her frustration at having to abandon her studies, her determination to someday return, and the pure joy of playing again on a worthy instrument. The final chord resonated through the restaurant like a declaration. This time, the applause was immediate and thunderous. People rose from their tables, clapping enthusiastically. An elderly gentleman near the window called out, "Brava!" A woman dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. Breathless and slightly dazed, Lily stood and gave a small, awkward bow. The applause continued as she tried to make her way back toward the service area. Diners reached out to touch her arm, offering compliments and asking questions she was too overwhelmed to properly answer. Mr. Chen intercepted her, his expression a mix of astonishment and calculation. "Why didn't you tell me you could play like that?" he asked, loud enough to be heard over the continuing applause. "You never asked," Lily replied simply. As she approached Reynolds' table, the men regarded her with new eyes. The transformation was striking. From invisible server to the center of attention, her talent commanding respect even from those who had dismissed her minutes earlier. Reynolds cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Well," he said, his tone attempting casual indifference, "I suppose that was adequately impressive." "Adequately?" Alex laughed. "That was extraordinary, and you know it." He turned to Lily. "Where did you study?" "You said Westview, but with whom?" "Professor Rivera," Lily answered, still catching her breath from the emotional and physical exertion of the piece. Alex's eyebrows shot up. "Rivera only takes the most promising students." Reynolds, unwilling to be completely upstaged, reached for his wallet. Yes, it was very nice. Here's the $1,000 as promised." He counted out the bills and held them out to Lily. "You won the bet fair and square." Lily looked at the money, suddenly feeling conflicted. Taking it felt like admitting she had performed for their amusement, not for the music itself. But pride wouldn't pay her overdue tuition or her portion of the rent. "Thank you," she said quietly, accepting the cash and tucking it into her apron pocket. "Don't thank me," Reynolds said gruffly. "A bet's a bet." Another man at the table, who had been silent until now, leaned forward. "May I ask why someone with your obvious talent is working as a waitress? Surely there are better opportunities." The question, though innocently asked, brought reality crashing back. Lily straightened her shoulders. "Music school isn't cheap," she said simply. "My scholarship was cut and rent doesn't pay itself." Alex frowned. "That's a waste of extraordinary talent." "No," Lily countered, finding her voice growing stronger. "What would be a waste is giving up entirely. I'm working to save enough to go back. It's just taking longer than I hoped." Before anyone could respond, Mr. Chen appeared at her side. "Lily, there are still tables needing service," he said. though his tone lacked its usual sharpness. "Of course," she replied, immediately slipping back into her professional demeanor. "Can I get anyone dessert or coffee?" she asked Reynolds's table, as if the last 15 minutes hadn't happened. The men exchanged glances, clearly thrown by her quick transition back to server. Reynolds shook his head. "Just the check." As Lily walked away to retrieve their bill, conversations throughout the restaurant gradually resumed, though many eyes still followed her. The ordinary act of clearing plates and refilling water glasses now seemed incongruous with what they had witnessed. In the kitchen, Mia grabbed her arm. "Why didn't you ever tell us you could play like that?" "It was amazing." Lily managed a small smile. "It just never came up, never came up." Mia laughed in disbelief. "You're a piano genius and it never came up?" Before Lily could respond, Mr. Chen called her name. "When you're finished with table 15, I'd like a word in my office." Lily nodded, her stomach tightening. Had she broken too many rules? Would her impromptu performance cost her this job she desperately needed? She returned to Reynolds' table with their bill. As she placed it on the table, Alex stood up. "Thank you for the music," he said, meeting her eyes directly. "It was truly extraordinary." Lily nodded, uncertain how to respond. "Thank you for listening," she finally said, then turned to continue her work. As she moved among the tables, she could feel the shift in how people regarded her, with curiosity, respect, even awe. For the first time in 2 years, she wasn't invisible. And despite her concerns about Mr. Chen's upcoming conversation, despite the exhaustion of her double shift, despite everything, Lily felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. The rest of Lily's shift passed in a blur. Customers who had witnessed her performance kept stopping her to offer compliments or ask questions about her musical background. Some even tried to slip her extra tips with whispered encouragements to keep pursuing your dream. It was overwhelming, touching, and slightly uncomfortable all at once. By the time she approached Mr. Chen's office door at the end of her shift, Lily's emotions had cycled through elation, embarrassment, pride, and now anxiety. She knocked tentatively. "Come in," Mr. Chen called. She entered to find him sitting behind his desk, reviewing receipts from the evening. The small office was cluttered but orderly, much like Mr. Chen himself. "Sit down, please," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Lily perched on the edge of the seat, hands folded in her lap. "If this is about what happened earlier, I understand it was against policy. It won't happen again." Mr. Chen looked up, his expression unreadable. "Do you know how long I've had that piano?" The question caught her off guard. "No, sir. 12 years. He leaned back in his chair. "I bought it when I opened this place because my wife said a fine dining establishment should have live music. But do you know how often it gets played properly? The way you played it tonight?" Lily shook her head. "Almost never." He sighed. "We hire pianists sometimes on weekends, but they play background music. Pleasant but forgettable. What you did tonight was different. You made people stop eating." His lips quirked in what might have been a smile. "That's usually bad for a restaurant, but tonight it was something special." Lily felt her cheeks warm at the unexpected praise. "The phone has been ringing all evening," Mr. Chen continued. "People wanting to know if the pianist will be playing tomorrow. I've had 3 reservation requests specifically mentioning you." "Oh," was all Lily could manage. Mr. Chen studied her for a moment. "How much do you make in tips on an average Friday or Saturday night?" "Around $100, maybe $150 on a good night," she answered, confused by the shift in conversation. He nodded thoughtfully. "What if I offered you a different position on weekend evenings? You'd play the piano for 2 hours, say from 7 to 9, and then you could return to serving if you wanted the extra income." Lily stared at him, trying to process the offer. "You want me to play here? Regularly? $300 per night, plus any tips people leave specifically for the music." He folded his hands on the desk. "People come to restaurants for an experience, not just food. You provided something exceptional tonight, and I'm a businessman. I recognize an opportunity when I see one. $300 just to play for 2 hours?" Lily repeated, her mind racing with calculations. That was more than double what she made in an entire shift. It's a fair rate for a professional musician, which is clearly what you are. Mr. Chen's expression softened slightly. And if it helps you get back to your studies sooner, I consider that an investment in the Golden Spoon's future. Perhaps one day we'll say we hosted the famous pianist Lily before she played Carnegie Hall. The unexpected kindness in his voice made her throat tighten. I don't know what to say. Say yes, try it for a month, and we'll see how it goes. He reached for a notepad and began writing. I'll have a proper contract drawn up, but we can start this weekend if you're available. I am, she said quickly. And yes, thank you. I'd love to accept. Mr. Chen nodded, satisfied. Good, now go home and rest. I suspect tomorrow we'll be busy. Lily left the restaurant in a daze, the weight of the $1,000 from Reynolds's bet still heavy in her pocket alongside the promise of Mr. Chen's offer. The night air felt different somehow, charged with possibility. Her tiny apartment was dark and cold when she arrived home just after midnight. Her roommate Kate had left a note on the counter about working an overnight shift at the hospital. Lily was almost grateful for the solitude. She needed space to process everything that had happened. She sank onto the edge of her bed, finally allowing herself to fully feel the emotions she'd been managing all evening. Tears came suddenly, surprising her with their intensity. Not tears of sadness, but of relief. For the first time in 2 years, her path back to music felt tangible. Not just a distant hope she clung to during difficult shifts. Pulling out her phone, she opened her banking app and checked her balance. $286.47. Adding tonight's tips and Reynolds' $1,000, plus what she would earn from playing at the restaurant. She might actually have enough for the first tuition installment by the spring semester. Sleep eluded her despite her exhaustion. Instead, Lily sat cross-legged on her bed and pulled out her electronic keyboard. She plugged in headphones so she wouldn't disturb the neighbors and began to play. Her fingers working through scales and exercises she had stubbornly maintained, even when there seemed to be no practical reason to keep up her skills. Tonight had changed everything, and the familiar ritual felt different, purposeful again, not just a way to cling to a fading dream. Morning came too quickly. Lily had barely slept, yet she felt more energized than she had in months. She got ready for her day shift at a small cafe 8 blocks from her apartment. Her second job, less glamorous than the Golden Spoon, but necessary to make ends meet. As she waited tables and brewed endless cups of coffee, Lily's mind kept drifting to the piano and Mr. Chen's offer. The cafe owner noticed her distraction. You seem a million miles away today, he commented as she restocked the pastry case. Sorry, Lily replied. It was an unusual night. Good unusual or bad unusual? She couldn't help the smile that spread across her face. Good. Really good. Her shift ended at 4, giving her just enough time to rush home, shower, and change before heading to the Golden Spoon for her regular evening shift. As she approached the restaurant, Lily noticed something different. A small sign in the window that hadn't been there before. Tonight, live piano performance. 7 p.m. Mr. Chen hadn't wasted any time. Anxiety fluttered in her stomach as she pushed open the staff entrance. What if last night had been a fluke? What if she couldn't replicate that level of performance? Inside, the energy of the restaurant felt different. Staff members glanced at her with newfound curiosity, or offered encouraging smiles. Mia, the hostess, rushed over immediately. The reservation book is completely full, she whispered excitedly. Mr. Chen had to turn people away. And it's because of you. Lily shook her head, uncomfortable with the attention. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Not according to the phone calls I've been taking all day, Mia insisted. Everyone's asking about the pianist. Before Lily could respond, Mr. Chen emerged from his office. Ah, good, you're here. He looked more animated than usual. We have a full house tonight. I've adjusted the serving schedule so you'll be free from 6:30 to prepare. Table 12 has been moved to accommodate better viewing of the piano. Better viewing? Lily echoed, feeling slightly dizzy at how quickly everything was changing. People are coming for dinner and a show, he explained matter-of-factly. We should give them the best experience possible. For the next 2 hours, Lily went through her normal serving routine, though nothing about the evening felt normal. Customers who had been present the night before greeted her with warm recognition, while new patrons looked at her with curious anticipation after overhearing conversations about the upcoming performance. At exactly 6:30, Mr. Chen appeared at her side. You're done with serving for now. Go prepare whatever you need to. Lily nodded, making her way to the small staff room where she had stored a folder of sheet music she'd hastily grabbed from her apartment. She'd spent the morning planning what to play, a mix of classical pieces, some jazz standards, and a few contemporary songs arranged for piano. She wanted to create a program that would showcase her range while still fitting the restaurant's atmosphere. As she sorted through the music, the door opened and Alex from Reynolds' group stood there, looking slightly unsure of himself. "I'm sorry to intrude," he said. "The hostess said I might find you back here." Lily straightened, surprised. "Can I help you with something?" He stepped into the room, holding a small gift bag. "I wanted to apologize for last night, for Tom's behavior and for not stepping in sooner." "There's no need to apologize," Lily said. "It all worked out well in the end." "Still," Alex insisted, "what happened wasn't right. Tom can be—" He trailed off, apparently unable to find a polite way to describe his associate. "I've worked in restaurants for 2 years," Lily said with a small smile. "Mr. Reynolds isn't the first difficult customer I've encountered." Alex nodded, then held out the bag. "This is for you, a small token of appreciation for the music last night." Hesitantly, Lily accepted the bag and peered inside. It contained a leather-bound book, a collection of piano compositions. "It's a first edition of Debussy's Complete Preludes," Alex explained. "I remembered how beautifully you played Claire de Lune and thought you might appreciate it. I collect rare music books, and this one deserves to be with someone who can bring the notes to life." Lily carefully lifted the book from the bag, opening it with reverent hands. The pages were slightly yellowed with age, but the notes were clear and pristine. Such a volume would have cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. "I can't accept this," she said, though she couldn't bring herself to close the book. "It's too valuable." "Please," Alex said quietly. "Music should belong to those who truly understand it. Besides, I have an ulterior motive for coming tonight." He smiled. "I'm hoping to hear you play again." Before Lily could respond, Mr. Chen appeared in the doorway. "It's almost time," he announced. "The dining room is full." Alex stepped back. "I won't keep you any longer. Break a leg, as they say in the arts." As he left, Lily carefully placed the book in her locker, her mind swimming with the events of the past 24 hours. How had her life changed so dramatically in such a short time? She followed Mr. Chen to the main dining area, where the buzz of conversation filled the space. Every table was occupied, and expectant faces turned toward her as she approached the piano. The nervousness from the previous night returned, but beneath it was something stronger, determination and the pure love of music that had driven her since childhood. As Lily sat down at the bench and adjusted it to her height, a hush fell over the restaurant. She placed her hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first notes of Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue filled the room, a piece that bridged classical and jazz, showcasing both technical prowess and emotional depth. As her confidence grew, Lily felt herself getting lost in the music just as she had the night before. This time, however, was different. This wasn't a performance to win a bet or prove someone wrong. This was her first step back toward the life she had thought lost to her, and as she played, Lily knew with absolute certainty that she would never let that life slip away again. 3 weeks had passed since Lily's first official performance at the Golden Spoon, and everything had changed. The restaurant now boasted a Piano Nights sign permanently displayed in its window, and reservations for Friday and Saturday evenings were booked solid 2 weeks in advance. Tonight marked her 7th performance, and Lily no longer felt the nervous flutter in her stomach as she approached the gleaming piano. Instead, there was a comfortable familiarity, a sense of homecoming each time her fingers touched the keys. Mr. Chen had been true to his word about payment, and even better, the tip jar he'd placed near the piano often contained an additional $100 or more each night. For the first time in 2 years, Lily wasn't constantly calculating which bill could wait another week or how to stretch her groceries until the next paycheck. As she played the final notes of a jazz arrangement of Autumn Leaves, warm applause filled the restaurant. Lily smiled and nodded her acknowledgement before transitioning smoothly into a classical piece. She had learned to create a flow between songs, maintaining the atmosphere without interruption. From her position at the piano, she could see most of the dining room. Regular patrons now greeted her with familiar smiles. Some had begun to make requests, slipping notes to the servers to pass along to her. She tried to honor as many as she could, gradually expanding her repertoire. At a corner table, she spotted Alex, who had become something of a regular himself. He had attended almost every performance since that first night, sometimes alone, sometimes with colleagues or friends, but never with Reynolds. Tonight he sat with an older couple, who Lily guessed might be his parents from their similar features. During her break between sets, Lily stepped away from the piano to stretch her legs. Mia intercepted her near the kitchen. "There's someone here asking for you," she whispered excitedly. "He says he's from Westview Music Academy." Lily's heart skipped a beat. "What, are you sure?" Mia nodded enthusiastically. "He's at table 9. Distinguished-looking older man with silver hair and glasses. Said his name is Professor Bennett." The name hit Lily like a physical force. Robert Bennett was the head of the piano department at Westview, renowned for his exacting standards and brilliant teaching. She had only met him once during her time at the academy, at a recital where he had offered brief but encouraging comments on her performance. "Did he say what he wants?" Lily asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Just that he'd like to speak with you when you have a moment." Mia gave her arm a squeeze. "This is big, isn't it?" "It might be," Lily admitted, smoothing her dress with suddenly damp palms. "Which one is table 9 again?" Mia discreetly pointed toward a table near the window, where the silver-haired man Lily remembered from her school days sat enjoying a glass of wine. He looked up at that moment, caught her eye, and gave a slight nod of recognition. Taking a deep breath, Lily made her way across the dining room, stopping briefly to acknowledge compliments from other diners. When she reached table 9, Professor Bennett stood, extending his hand. "Miss Chen," he said, using her full name rather than just Lily. "It's been quite some time." "Professor Bennett," she replied, shaking his hand. "It's good to see you again. Please join me for a moment if you're not too busy." He gestured to the empty chair across from him. Lily glanced at the clock. She had 10 more minutes before her second set. "I'd be happy to." As she sat down, Professor Bennett studied her with keen eyes. "I must say, this is not where I expected to find one of our most promising former students." The words "former student" stung, but Lily kept her expression neutral. "Life takes unexpected turns sometimes. Indeed it does." He took a sip of his wine. "I was brought here by a former student of mine, Alexander Price. He was quite insistent that I hear you play." "Alex brought you here?" Lily asked, surprised. Professor Bennett nodded. "He's been taking master classes with me for several years. When he told me about a remarkable pianist he'd discovered working in a restaurant, I was intrigued. Then he mentioned your name and I remembered you immediately." Lily felt a flush of pride that he had remembered her among the hundreds of students who must have passed through his department. "Your Chopin was always exceptional," he continued. "I recall a particular performance of the Ballade No. 1 that was quite moving. When you didn't return after your second year, I assumed you had transferred to another program." Lily looked down at her hands resting on the tablecloth. "My scholarship was reduced unexpectedly. I couldn't afford to continue without it. And the school wasn't informed of your financial difficulties." "I tried," she said simply. "The financial aid office said there were no additional funds available that year. I had to withdraw." Professor Bennett frowned. "That's unfortunate. Talent like yours shouldn't be wasted because of administrative oversights." "It hasn't been wasted," Lily said with quiet dignity. "Delayed perhaps, but not wasted. I've been saving to return." He nodded approvingly. "That's what Alexander said you might say. He seems to have developed quite an admiration for your determination as well as your playing." Before Lily could respond to this surprising revelation, Professor Bennett reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "The reason for my visit isn't merely to reminisce," he said, sliding the envelope across the table. "The spring semester begins in January. We have an opening in the advanced program, and the department has some discretionary scholarship funds that weren't allocated this fall." Lily stared at the envelope, afraid to hope. "What are you saying exactly?" "I'm saying that after hearing you play tonight, and you were magnificent, by the way, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to return to Westview to complete your degree. With a full scholarship." The words hung in the air between them as Lily tried to process what she was hearing. A full scholarship. The chance to return. To finish what she had started. Why? She finally managed to ask. "Why now after all this time?" "Because talent and persistence should be rewarded," Professor Bennett replied. "And perhaps because the academy made a mistake in letting you slip away in the first place." He gestured to the envelope. All the details are in there, including the scholarship terms. Take some time to think about it. I don't need time, Lily said, her voice stronger now. I want to come back. I've always wanted to come back. A rare smile crossed the professor's face. I thought you might say that. But review the materials anyway. There's a form that needs to be submitted by next Friday if you're accepting the offer. Lily's fingers closed around the envelope, holding it as if it might disappear if she loosened her grip. Thank you, Professor. I don't know what to say. You can thank Alexander, he said, finishing his wine. He was quite persuasive on your behalf. Made some calls to members of the board who owe him favors, I believe. Lily's gaze drifted across the restaurant to where Alex sat with his family, unaware of the life-changing conversation taking place. Or perhaps not entirely unaware as he chose that moment to look in her direction, raising his glass slightly when their eyes met. Now, Professor Bennett said, checking his watch, I believe it's almost time for your next set, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of what convinced Alexander that we needed to bring you back to Westview. As if on cue, Mr. Chen appeared, hovering discreetly nearby to signal that it was time for Lily to return to the piano. If you'll excuse me, she said, rising from the table, still clutching the envelope. Of course. Professor Bennett stood as well. I look forward to seeing you on campus in January, Miss Chen. As Lily walked back to the piano, she felt as though she were moving through a dream. The familiar path across the restaurant floor seemed different somehow, as if she were crossing a bridge rather than merely crossing a room. She settled onto the bench, tucking the envelope carefully into the pocket of her dress. The weight of it against her side was a physical reminder that this was real, not some wishful fantasy. Looking out at the restaurant, she saw faces turned toward her expectantly. Professor Bennett watching with academic interest, Alex with that same thoughtful gaze he'd had since the first night, Mr. Chen standing proudly near the kitchen, and dozens of strangers who had come to hear her play. Instead of beginning her planned second set, Lily closed her eyes and let her hands find the keys for Chopin's Ballade No. 1, the piece Professor Bennett had remembered, the piece that had once represented all her hopes for a future in music. As the opening notes filled the restaurant, she felt those hopes returning, stronger than before. Each chord, each delicate run, each crescendo told a story. Her story. Of dreams deferred but not abandoned. Of persistence through disappointment. Of chance encounters that changed everything. When the final notes faded, there was a moment of profound silence before the applause began, appreciative, enthusiastic, and led by Professor Bennett, who had risen to his feet. In that moment, surrounded by music and recognition and opportunity, Lily finally allowed herself to believe that the path she had thought lost to her forever had suddenly, miraculously, reappeared beneath her feet. During her final set of the evening, Lily noticed Alex approach Professor Bennett's table. The two men spoke briefly before shaking hands and parting ways, the professor heading toward the exit, pausing only to give Lily a farewell nod, and Alex returning to his family as the restaurant began to empty and Lily played her final piece of the night. Gentle Debussy prelude that served as a musical goodnight. She found herself wondering about Alex's role in this unexpected turn of events. What had prompted him to speak to his former teacher about her? Why had he gone to such lengths for someone who had been, until recently, just a waitress at his colleague's favorite restaurant? The questions would have to wait. For now, she had music to play, forms to complete, and plans to make for a future that suddenly stretched before her, wide open and full of possibility. 1 year later, Lily sat in the green room of Westview Music Academy's concert hall, trying to calm her racing heart. Outside, an audience of over 300 people waited for her senior recital to begin. Among them were her former co-workers from the Golden Spoon, her roommate Kate, Professor Bennett, and countless other students and faculty members. She smoothed the fabric of her new concert dress, a deep blue gown she had purchased with her own money, earned from her weekend performances at the Golden Spoon, which she had continued even after returning to school. Mr. Chen had insisted on keeping her position open, adjusting the schedule around her classes and study time. 10 minutes, Miss Chen, the stage manager said, poking his head through the door. Lily nodded, taking a deep breath. She had prepared for this moment for months. The program included challenging pieces by Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, and Rachmaninoff, culminating in an original composition she had written during her first semester back at Westview. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. The door opened to reveal Alex, looking elegant in a dark suit, a small bouquet of white roses in his hand. "I thought you might like these for good luck," he said, extending the flowers. "Though I doubt you need luck with the amount of preparation you've put in." Lily smiled, accepting the roses. "Thank you for coming. And for these." Over the past year, Alex had become an unexpected friend and supporter. After her return to Westview, she had learned more about his background, his own musical training, his family's foundation that supported arts education, and the behind-the-scenes role he had played in helping secure her scholarship. What had begun as a chance encounter at a restaurant had evolved into a genuine friendship built on their shared love of music and mutual respect. "I wouldn't miss it," he replied. "The entire evening is sold out, by the way. Standing room only," Lily groaned softly. "That doesn't help with the nerves," Alex laughed. "You've played for tougher crowds. Remember that group of food critics who came to the Golden Spoon last summer? If you could impress them while they were dissecting Mr. Chen's seafood risotto, you can handle this audience." The memory made her smile. "True. At least no one here will be sending back their meal if I miss a note." "Speaking of the Golden Spoon," Alex said, his expression turning more serious, "there's someone else here to see you perform. Someone who specifically requested to attend." Lily's brow furrowed. "Who?" "Thomas Reynolds." The name sent a small jolt through her. She hadn't seen Reynolds since that fateful night when he'd made the bet that had unknowingly changed the course of her life. "Reynolds is here? Why?" Alex shrugged. "He asked me for a ticket last week. Said he wanted to see how the restaurant pianist had progressed. I think he's actually curious about whether his ridiculous bet might have somehow led to something meaningful." Lily considered this for a moment. A year ago, she might have felt anger at the mention of Reynolds' name, remembering his dismissive attitude and mocking tone. Now she felt something closer to gratitude. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "in a strange way I owe him a thank you. If he hadn't made that bet, I might still be serving tables too afraid to take a chance." "You don't owe him anything," Alex insisted. "Your talent would have found a way eventually." "Maybe," she acknowledged. "But life doesn't always give people the chances they deserve. Sometimes it takes an unexpected push, even if it comes from an unlikely source." She paused, meeting his gaze directly. "Like you." Alex looked away, seeming almost embarrassed. "I just made a phone call or two." "You did much more than that," Lily said softly. "You saw something worth believing in when most people just saw a waitress. Including me sometimes." Before Alex could respond, the stage manager reappeared. "5 minutes, Miss Chen. We should head to the wings now." Alex stepped back. "I'll return to my seat." "Break a leg, Lily. Though you won't need luck, you have something much more powerful." "What's that?" she asked, gathering her sheet music. "The music that's always been inside you," he said simply, then slipped out the door. Lily followed the stage manager through the backstage area to the wings of the concert hall. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see the packed auditorium. Her eyes scanned the front rows, finding familiar faces. Mr. Chen and several staff members from the restaurant, Professor Bennett sitting with other faculty, and Alex returning to his seat in the third row. With a jolt of surprise, she spotted Reynolds a few rows back, looking somewhat uncomfortable in the academic setting but present nonetheless. Their eyes met briefly across the distance, and he gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. The house lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the audience. The stage manager touched Lily's shoulder lightly. "Whenever you're ready." Taking a deep breath, Lily walked onto the stage. The polished concert grand piano waited for her, infinitely more impressive than the restaurant's instrument that had started her journey back to music. The spotlight felt warm on her skin as she took her position at the bench, adjusting it carefully, looking out at the audience, now just shadowy shapes beyond the bright stage lights. Lily allowed herself a moment to appreciate how far she had come. From a waitress with fading dreams to a graduating music student about to complete her degree with honors. She placed her hands on the keys and began to play Bach's Prelude in C major, simple, elegant notes that built upon each other to create something far greater than their individual parts, much like the experiences that had brought her to this moment. As she moved through her program, each piece felt like a chapter of her story. The Beethoven Sonata with its dramatic shifts mirrored the sudden changes in her life, The Chopin nocturne echoed the quiet determination that had sustained her through difficult times. The challenging Rachmaninoff reflected the obstacles she had overcome. When she reached her original composition, titled simply The Bet, a small ripple of recognition passed through those in the audience who knew her story. The piece began with hesitant, almost fragmented notes that gradually found their confidence, building to a powerful middle section full of determination and resolve, before concluding with a triumphant, joyful finale. As the final notes faded, there was a moment of complete silence, the same magical pause she had experienced that first night at the Golden Spoon, when time seemed suspended and anything felt possible. Then came the applause, thunderous, immediate, and overwhelming. The audience rose to their feet, their appreciation washing over Lily in waves. She stood to take her bow, her eyes misting slightly as she acknowledged their response. Professor Bennett approached the stage with a bouquet of flowers, followed by the dean of the music school, who presented her with her diploma, granted a few weeks early in recognition of her exceptional work. Miss Chen has not only demonstrated remarkable technical skill, the dean announced to the audience, but has shown us all what can be achieved through perseverance and passion. Her journey reminds us that true talent finds its voice no matter the obstacles. As Lily accepted the diploma and took another bow, she spotted Mr. Chen in the audience, applauding enthusiastically. Beside him stood Mia and the other restaurant staff, some wiping away tears. They had become a second family to her, supporting her comeback with schedule adjustments and constant encouragement. In the third row, Alex watched with undisguised pride. Their friendship had deepened over the year, built on mutual respect and a shared love of music. He had never once mentioned the money he'd spent acquiring the rare Debussy book or the calls he'd made to secure her scholarship, but Lily knew. She made a mental note to thank him properly at the reception later, and several rows back Reynolds sat with a thoughtful expression, his applause seeming genuine if somewhat bemused. The man who had laughed at the idea of a waitress playing piano was now witnessing the culmination of a journey he had inadvertently helped begin. After the ceremony, a reception was held in the music building's main hall. Students, faculty, and guests mingled, enjoying refreshments and congratulating the performers. Lily found herself surrounded by well-wishers, including her former co-workers from the Golden Spoon. "We're so proud of you," Mr. Chen said, his usual reserve softened by genuine emotion. "Though I must admit I miss having you play at the restaurant every weekend. Customers still ask about you. I'll be back this summer," Lily promised, "before I start graduate school." As the crowd shifted, she suddenly found herself face-to-face with Reynolds. He looked older than she remembered, less intimidating somehow. "Congratulations," he said, extending his hand. "That was quite impressive." Lily accepted the handshake. "Thank you for coming. And believe it or not, thank you for that bet. It changed everything." Reynolds had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I was rather obnoxious that night, wasn't I? Alex hasn't let me forget it." He paused, then added more sincerely, "You've done something remarkable here. Not many people get second chances and make the most of them. Sometimes all people need is the opportunity," she replied, "and perhaps a little push in the right direction." As Reynolds moved away, Alex appeared at her side, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "One to celebrate," he said, offering her a glass. "How does it feel to be officially a graduate?" Lily accepted the champagne with a smile. "Like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. To new beginnings, then," Alex said, raising his glass. "And to unexpected bets," Lily added, clinking her glass against his. Around them, the reception continued, filled with music, laughter, and conversation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, graduate school applications, career decisions, and all the uncertainties of a life devoted to music. But tonight was for celebration, for acknowledging how far she had come from that evening 1 year ago when a rich man had laughed, betting a waitress couldn't play piano, only to have her music stun the crowd and change the course of multiple lives. As she looked around at the people who had supported her journey, some from the beginning, others who had joined along the way, Lily felt a profound sense of gratitude. The path hadn't been easy or straightforward, but it had led her exactly where she was meant to be, and in the end that made every difficult step worthwhile.